Michael Hobbs. Welcome to Louisiana Lefty.
Hey, thank you for having me. Anything with Louisiana, I love.
I know you do. Well, before we get to talking about Louisiana on the podcast, I wanted to do a little video with you first, because I know you have thoughts about the U.S. news coverage of the Queen's death, the Queen Elizabeth's death and her funeral. I personally have genealogical connections to England and Ireland, so I have a fondness for those countries, but I nonetheless found it strange that we had such extensive coverage of that. What are your thoughts on that?
So I found it to be slightly bizarre, and then I kept having to recenter and focus on the task at hand of working, earning a living, and everything else. But also the fact that hearing small snippets of stories about it actually kind of was fascinating in and out of it. For example, this was the first time that there was a monarchy, it's a major monarchy that was broadcast around the world. People haven't seen that before. It's never been seen on television. So billions of people haven't seen what that actually looks like. And I thought that was a little fascinating. Another story that I had heard in passing that I thought was remarkable was Nelson Mandela never referred to her as the Queen or ma'am or Your Regency. He always called her Elizabeth.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, who knew? So, it was small things like that. But I mean, overall, I'm just kind of glad that they got it done. And it seemed as if they did a great job with it. I don't know. So, but yeah, we'll see what Charles does as the king.
Well, we don't do this for other countries. And I understand that Elizabeth was a particularly long ruling queen, or I don't even know that rule is the right word anymore, reigning queen, but we don't see this for other countries. What's so unique about this fascination of the royals?
I mean, I think it's so deeply ingrained, especially considering our, who we are as a country and around the world. Colonization plays a major role in this. And, the old saying and adage that the sun never set on the British Empire. I mean, they had a footprint all over the world at one point in time. And I think that is part of the reason why people have such a fascination with it and with the royal family as well. I'm also probably somewhat optimistic that a little bit of the fascination would be to see where this has evolved from. We now have a person of color in the royal family, I think, and an American at that. So I'm very fascinated to see how this whole thing will evolve and move along. Going back to that snippet of funny things that I had heard, there was a announcer, broadcaster, a color analyst, I guess you would say, that said, they are evolving. No one ever thought that Charles would be the king. No one ever thought that his wife would be the queen. They had to change the rules for William to marry his wife. And then Harry came along and married a Black woman from America. So they may not be moving at the speed that we all want them to in terms of being progressives, but, there is evolution that's occurring.
And I feel like I remember you had some concerns that this would kick some of our own electoral news out of the headlines when it came across. That was a worry for you?
Definitely. And, for example, I am elated to see that the media has had a zero focus back in on, of course, the absurdness and disgusting behavior that we've seen from Republican governors and shipping migrants and new Americans to Massachusetts. I was a little worried. I was very worried, actually, that we would lose some of the momentum that we have been building up as Democrats around the country in key areas, because the coverage would just constantly be pouring in about what we were going about the Queen and everything else. And I just wanted to make sure that, we as Democrats kept our North Star and, kept pounding away on the message, on the doors and everything else that needs to be done.
Well, it seems like the Republicans just can't help themselves from doing or saying extremist things.
They are ate up with going in down a rabbit hole of consistent absurdity. And one of the things that I would like to ask, especially a lot of my more conservative friends that I have, and I have a lot of them as a Southerner, as a man of faith, as a United States Marine, I know a lot of conservative people. But I would like to ask the simple question, which is, are you electing these individuals based upon the office that they currently occupy or want to occupy? Or are these people running for offices that they would one day hope to aspire to? And they're behaving in such a manner because they're trying to run for president in the
Right.
Republican Party. And I'm not looking for, as an American, I'm looking for someone who's North Star, who's firmly centered in reality, who understands everyday Americans. They understand what needs to be done to manage a country. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for someone that wants to pull a cheap political stunt. And I mean that on either side of the aisle. And,
Sure.
it's disturbing that they think this kind of behavior is acceptable.
Well, I look forward to having a longer ranging conversation with you on the podcast. So sit tight and we'll get right to that.